Welcome. Today we'll be helping you solve some right triangle trigonometry questions. Number 1. Suppose you have been assigned the job to measure the height of a farmer's silo. Climbing makes you dizzy, so you decide to do the whole job at ground level. From a point 47.3 meters away from the base of the silo, you find that you must look up at an angle of 53 degrees to see the top of the silo. How high is the tower? So we're going to start off with our triangle, and we are going to make this x, which is going to represent our silo. And we know that we are 47.3 meters away from the silo, so we're going to go ahead and write that here. And we know the degrees that we are looking at is 53 degrees. So, how are we going to set this up? Since we have the opposite and the adjacent angle, we're going to use tangent. So, it would be the tangent of angle 53 degrees, which would equal opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 47.3. So in order to solve this, we're going to have to multiply both sides by 47.3. So that would make these cancel out, leaving us with just x on this side. And we would have to multiply the same thing on this side, so 47.3. And now we're going to solve it, which would make the answer 62.8 meters. The height of the tower is 62.8 meters tall. Okay, situation number 2. Your cat is trapped on a tree branch 6.5 meters above the ground. You find a ladder that is only 6.7 meters long. If you want the ladder's tip on the branch, what angle will the ladder make with the ground? So we're going to start off with the stuff that we already know. We know that the branch that the cat is sitting on is 6.5 meters. We know that the ladder we have is 6.7 meters. So right now we are solving for the angle. And in this case we will use theta. So we're going to start off by setting it up. We're going to use sine because we have the opposite and the hypotenuse. So it would be sine of theta equals 6.5 over 6.7. And since we have this, we would have to turn this into an inverse, so it would be sine of -1 times 6.5 over 6.7, which equals theta. And when you enter that into the calculator, you get 75.97. So the ladder would have to be at an angle of 75.97 degrees. Now for question number 3. Hala'akila is a 10,000 foot high dormant volcano on Maui, Hawaii. The peak is a horizontal distance of only 30,000 feet from the ocean. Now this is a two-part question. So the first part, at what angle would you have to look up to see the peak if you were standing on the beach? So we're going to start off with what we know. We know that the height of the volcano is 10,000 feet. And we know that the distance from the volcano to the ocean is 30,000 feet. And we're trying to find the angle. So in this case we will use theta. Now we will use tangent because we have the opposite and the adjacent. So we would start it off as tangent of theta equals 10,000 over 30,000. And since we can't solve it this way, we're going to have to turn it into an inverse. So this would be tangent to the power of -1 times 10,000 over 30,000 equals theta. And when you plug that into your calculator, you get the answer is 18.43 degrees. So you would have to be looking at an 18.43 degree angle in order to see the top of the volcano from the beach. Now the second part of the question. What is the straight line distance from the beach to the peak? So in this case, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse, which in this case we will call C. So we have 10,000 squared plus 30,000 squared equals c squared. And when you plug that into the calculator, you get that the distance from the beach to the peak of the volcano is 31,622.78 feet. Now we're going to move on to number 4. This is another two-part question. An observer is 5.2 kilometers from the launch pad of a missile ascending. At a particular time, the angle of elevation is 34 degrees. First part is, how high is the missile? So the first thing we know we're solving for, we're going to use B in this case, because that's how high the missile is. And we know that the observer is 5.2 kilometers away from the launch pad. And we know that he's looking at an angle of 34 degrees. Fix that. So we're going to start off by setting this up by tangent, since we have the opposite and the adjacent sides. So it's going to be tangent of 34 degrees, and that's going to equal opposite over adjacent. So it would be B over 5.2. In order to get the B by itself, we're going to have to multiply both sides by 5.2. And when those cancel out, and you're left with B on this side, but since you multiplied by 5.2 on this side, you also have to multiply by 5.2 on that side. And when you solve that, you get that B is equal to 3.5 kilometers. So we now know that the height of the missile is 3.5 kilometers. The second part of the question, how far is the missile from the observer? So in this case, we are solving for this side, which we will call H. Now we know we're going to be using the Pythagorean theorem. We're going to start off with this one, which would be 3.5 squared plus 5.2 squared. And all that is going to equal h squared. And when you do the work, you see that h squared is equal to the square root of 39.29. And when you work that out, you see that h itself is approximately equal to 6.27 kilometers. Okay, now for the fifth and final question. A team is building a zip line through the skyline of Atlanta. They have 125 feet of steel cable for the zip line, and have been told the maximum angle of decline can only be 42 degrees. What is the maximum distance the two buildings can be apart? So, as of now, we know that the distance of the steel cable that they have is 125 feet. And we know that the maximum angle of decline is 42 degrees. So we're going to be solving for this, which we will call A. So in order to set this up, as of now, we have the opposite and the hypotenuse. So we're going to use sine. So we will set it up as sine of 42 degrees equals A, which is our opposite, over 125, which is our hypotenuse. In order to get A by itself, we must multiply both sides by 125, which would make these cancel out and leave you with A on this side. But since you multiplied by 125 on this side, you also have to multiply by 125 on this side. And when you do that, you plug it into your calculator, you see that the distance is A, which equals 83.64 feet.